Have you ever felt the rug was pulled out from under you? I confess that I have. And what I found was that I have always landed on higher ground, no matter what it looked like. And in this unfoldment, I discovered with an old sage who said, life is like hands clapping. In other words, when we feel on top of our game, when we know who we are, what we're about, we feel wonderful, we've got it. And then what happens as we grow and we reach the next level, there's a feeling of disorientation and we feel, I've lost it. I've got it. I've lost it. I've got it. I've lost it. Life gives us the opportunity to feel it at such a deep level so that it's like one hand clapping, right? To know that energy that is within us. And in the contractions of my life, I was raised in domestic violence. And with the tragedy of my sister taking her own life. And she was pretty amazing in many levels and didn't know it. And she went into drugs and alcohol. I went into spirituality and self-discovery. And I would find myself in court before the judge, praying for the mercy of the court to release her in my custody. And I would share with whoever the judge was that she was a product of her environment, that my father's emotional abuse, physical abuse, and all of the things that we went through were why she was doing what she was doing. And each judge, no matter who it was, always came up with one singular question. You are her sister. Why aren't you a drug addict and alcoholic abuser? And I always had one singular answer, and that was because I realized I had a choice and she didn't. And then they would release her into my custody. And eventually, she took her own life. And when that occurred in my life, I looked at I self-evaluated. And I realized that I embodied the archetype of the overachiever. If I went so far and did so much that the trauma of my childhood would disappear and not follow me. And what I realized was, at a really deep level, is that those things that we push down in the subconscious run us. And they run us in such a way, energetically, that we don't even know we're doing this dance. I never felt like I was enough. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't this enough. I was not plain enough. So the more I overachieved and the more I put it out there, it did not bring happiness. It did not bring fulfillment. It brought a kind of a nagging feeling within me, that nagging feeling that I'm not enough. And I became a spiritual leader. And in the 77 years I've been on the planet, 46 of them have been a spiritual leader in a metaphysical energy field where we believe that we're all one. We are unified beyond color, race, creed, sexual orientation, and I added political affiliation. Right. And one Sunday in San Diego, and I had 3 services of 1,000 people showing up at each service, I looked out, and in the very, very last row, I thought I saw my father. And we had been estranged for several years. So I'm up there on the platform in the lectern, and we're doing the announcements, and I totally bypassed the order of service and went right in to my presentation. And after I completed my soloist looked, at the watch, and I looked down, I said, oh my gosh, I have 35 minutes left. How'd that happen? And I said, I'll disclose to you. When I looked out, I thought I saw my father, who I've been estranged with for several years. And then I said, are you my father? And the gentleman shook his head, no. And I had a handheld mic and a cord. And I began to walk off the platform and said, are you sure? Are you my father? And he shook his head, no. And as I held on to the handheld mic with the cord, all of the energy and the memories and the pain just came flooding into my consciousness. And there it was, the times that I called the police because he was physically attacking us. The time my sister and I carried my mother's body down the staircase because she had a near-fatal suicide attempt. The time I ran out at 3 a.m. in the morning from nearly being raped. All came flooding in. And then I couldn't go any further. And I had to drop the mic. And I kept walking down this aisle and saying, are you sure you're not my father? And he kept shaking his head no. And that as I walked and got closer, releasing my lifeline to the cord, like an umbilical cord, and got closer, suddenly this compassion came flooding into my heart. And I saw this man in pain. And as I approached him, and there he was, I said, you are my father. And I embraced him. And as I embraced him, he wept. And he said, you've done so much, you've gone so far, and I can't take any of the credit. Now, you have to realize there's 1,000 people in the audience. There is not a dry eye in that audience. And I said, you know what, Daddy? I wouldn't be who I am today without those experiences. I wouldn't trade them for anything, nor would I repeat them. I have learned. And suddenly, this energy just filled the room, and I mean an energy. And I felt freed. I felt the energy of light just lift me. And all those years of the bitterness and the rage, they disappeared in the natural process of life itself, of really connecting with this man who was in pain. And I had a television program, it was called Passport to Life. It was satellited into Los Angeles. He was sitting in his living room in Venice, where he lived. I came on, and he just dropped everything, got in his car, and drove to San Diego, where my ministry was. And there we were. And he disclosed later that he had pancreatic cancer, and he did die shortly after that. But my life lesson was about forgiveness. And I want you to know that the universe just poured in its blessing, pressed down, shaken together, and flowing over into every area of my life. Thank you. And out of that, miracles showed up. Absolute miracles. And I lived on the ocean in Coronado, and I would just look out at the ebb and flow of life. My mother's favorite song was Ebb Tide, and I would think of the energies and our life journeys. And as we come together in community and realize that we are drawn together through our similarities, we grow through our differences. This is the beauty of life for each and every one of us. And as we let go of what no longer serves us, that's where real freedom comes in and the authenticity to be who we are. So on this wonderful, wonderful evening, with so much love and energy in the room, and we can feel that. We can feel that support and the opportunity that we have to make a difference. And when we feel that energy, everything opens up. And when I married, my baby girl was 3 days old, my husband was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And he did eventually die and passed away. And again, I felt the rug was pulled out from under me. And as I opened, to this experience, realizing I can collapse myself into the suffering and the pain, and of course the human condition, we do grieve our losses. This is profoundly true, and we need to do that. However, I made a choice. I can collapse myself into this pain and suffering, or I can arise like the phoenix, triumphant and victorious over this experience as well. I don't need to weep that it's over. I need to rejoice that it happened. And thank you. And when he passed away, and I made peace with it, I acknowledged that we all have a journey, we all have a path, and each and every one of us, we have a calling. And we can make excuses, right, on the human condition. We can make excuses, or we can make it happen. Someone has to say it.